Hey, what's up, you guys? Marty Schwartz here with Marty Music, and I completed a brand new course that's an intermediate foundation, meaning everything, all the tools you need that you want to practice from after you're a beginner all the way on. And so one of the pieces of that foundation is understanding a little bit about the CAGED method. And you don't even have to think of it that way. It's really just seeing how things relate to those shapes, C, A, G, E, and D. I'll talk about it right now, but also that intermediate foundation course is available at martymusic.com. And I think it'll really help you out. And this is one of the chapters. Let's do it. All right, so the CAGED system, but really all that means is the basic open chord shapes and more, but that's where the term comes from. So let's just start with that. We got the C major chord. And I talked about finding the notes on the E and A string and all over the neck. And so even like the C major chord, I challenge you to start figuring out what the notes are of a C major chord. You'll find that there's only 3 notes there and they just repeat. In different combinations. C, E, G, C, E. You even have a low E there if you want. Now check it out. The root of the chord. It's called C because the C note, A, B, C, is the root and the rest of the notes are harmonized off of it. Then we have A major with the open A. Some guys will play it with these. And there may be times where you're going to want to do that. Mostly that as a beginner. And then also, you can do it with one finger and the high E's just kind of muted. I'm not pressing all the way down. And what's cool about that one is, especially in the more blues rock setting, it frees up your middle and ring finger. Next is G, and once again, major and minor chords are only 3 notes, a root, 3, and a 5. So there's 3 different ways I want you to play G, or think that you should, because I use all 3 all the time. The first one is probably the first one that you're taught, middle finger, index, and ring on the 3rd of the high E. Another choice, it's just a different combination of the same root, 3rd, 5, is ring finger on the 3rd fret B and pinky on the 3rd fret high E. Those are just both G major chords. One's not more G than the other. And then ring, middle, and pinky, that one, because of the fingering for C chords, F chords. The single note stuff. Now with the G with the 2 fingers here, you get the C add 9 with it. That's one good reason. Also, when you play G this way, the ring finger can pivot to the D chord, which you're going to get a lot of G and Ds together. So next we have E major. And what's great about that is it's got the lowest note on the guitar, as the root. And the lowest note's always cool. It's also one of the favorite keys for blues. Lots of things you can add to it, but that's the E. And then one of the heroes of all guitar chords, the D major. And all the wonderful things that go with it. So that spells out CAGED. C, A, G, E, and D. Not necessarily a great chord progression, but they're the shapes that we are going to use. Everything can revert back to one of those shapes. Now, the other really important three of those that you got to know are just the minor forms for E, A, and D minor, and because the rest will be bar chords. So you got to know E minor. You can play it that way. You can play it that way. You got to know A minor. And then D minor. Sometimes I'll play with my pinky there, and that's because of this. Knowing those chords is important, but now check it out. The first one that kind of blew my mind, but it works for all of the chords, is taking a D chord, and there's open notes involved, open strings involved with this D chord, the open D. But the three notes of D are D, A, D, F sharp. So D, A, and F sharp. So even if I'm not using the open D, there's still a D in there right there. So if I just focus right now on just where my fingers are. So the very first video I talked about, E to F's a half step, B to C's a half step, finding the notes. Well, here's another good example, and then also related to what the CAGED method or system is just how we can take one note, like for instance, a D note is the 3rd fret B string. I move it up as now it's an E note. Well, if I do that with the chords, they work that way as well. And if you're a beginner, you might not know that yet or haven't put it all together, but D up a whole step is E. Now the thing is, if I use the open D string, it hasn't changed. So it doesn't sound like an E major when I do that. But watch, if I play the open E and then just these three, you're going to really hear an E major chord. Here's a D major. But if I just play the three, that is a triad. D major, E major, F major, G major. So let's just test this out. I said G major right here. Let's hear that with our ear, and then I'll play the classic CAGED, open G right there. It's the same chord. It's the same root, 3rd and 5, but some are an octave up. They're in a different combination. But I found it by taking the D of C, A, G, E, D and moving it until I found a G chord or an A chord or a B chord or a B flat. So right now, that's a B flat major triad. There's another one. Here's another one. Yeah, it's the same chord, but it reverts back to one of your beginner chords, D major. Now, the other reason I wanted you to be able to play, well, they're the like open minor chords. You can play E minor, A minor, and D minor, and I'll dedicate a chapter to bar chords coming up. but same thing. I could take a D minor shape and say, well, where would E minor be? Well, it would be a whole step. D up a whole step is E. Those were all E minors. I knew E minor. I knew D minor up a whole step. I knew A minor up a bunch of steps until I found the root on the A. So that's E minor still. And then I also did it 12th fret on the E string. Which once again, go back to the foundation. Finding the notes on the guitar, because you're going to be plugging things in. Then taking the basic, what you just thought of as, I remember only thinking these were just right here. But then eventually I realized that no, this is just one spot where we're taking advantage of the open strings here. But these shapes can be moved around. Like a C major shape, I could play this. But I don't do that shape very often, but I might do this. But my finger now is working as that nut that creates the open strings. So I need an extra finger, and then the rest, middle, ring, and pinky, is forming that C chord right there, which you normally do like that because you have the nut. But when you don't have the nut, you have to imagine that your index finger creates that nut and moves it up. But as you get better at it, you could just maybe look at just those two notes. And that opens up other fingers where I don't have to do that shape, and I could do. But I can see G and B, the little beginning of a G major chord from the C shape. Now, you don't memorize that in one sitting, but that is where you can go with those basic open cowboy chords. We'll get more into it as we progress along. All right, I hope you got a little something from that. Of course, you can learn a lot more and get that intermediate foundation at martymusic.com. Got the new course, Intermediate Foundation, for you. You go check that out. Appreciate your extra support, and we'll see you again. Take care.